Okay, excellent. Lovely to see you all. Well, look, thank you all so very much for coming along to what is the first of the Limetropy Book Club. So, sort of between you, me, and the gatepost, we're sort of making this up as we go along on this one. So I was delighted when I saw your particular names come up, because knowing each of you, I knew you'd kind of just roll with it. You'd be very kind and just roll with it rather than anything else. We obviously have Adrian coming along at 1:30. So the way I envisage this working is, just to give you a rundown, going to ask each of you just to say hi, introduce yourselves, and let me know why you were interested in reviewing PunkCX, if that's okay. Then I will kind of pick on someone to give their top line review, and then work around with others either violently agreeing or identifying that they kind of got something slightly different out of it, or they got a slightly contrary view. And I thought we'll just let that work its way round until 1:30, when Adrian will join us. And then the intention is that everyone will get the opportunity to put their question to Adrian. Now, I'm not going to, so there's 6 of you. So that's 5 minutes each. So it should work out quite comfortably. So that's kind of the plan, to make sure that each of you get the chance to put a question to Adrian. But what I will do is, obviously, if for some reason Adrian's taking far too long responding, I'll kind of cut him dead so we can move on. So I want to make sure each of you get the opportunity to say hello to Adrian, if that's all right. Now, we do have Best Question Award as well, which I don't know which one Adrian will choose, but the best question will win an additional prize.
Can you hear me okay? So hi everyone, my name's Stephen Harkins, or Stevie is my less formal name. And yeah, I'm working, so I work for a company called Syngenta. And chemical manufacturer, have done for the last 20 odd years. I find myself in a different role at the moment, where I am working, doing a piece of work as a change delivery manager, and therefore working closer with trying to forge links more with our customers in terms of customer centricity. In terms of the book, I found I'm not an avid reader of a lot of business books. However, I found this very different. I was immediately attracted to visually by it. I loved the artwork. I thought the artwork was fantastic. I thought the author was very, very clever in terms of reaching out to hook people who are maybe a bit like-minded like myself. So don't think too much about reading. It was actually the font, the pictures, the attraction, the chapters, the fact that I could just pick it up and read any bit at any time. I didn't really need at all to read it from start to finish. Found myself going back to bits I had already read, but just wanted to read it again, just so I understood it. I thought the link to various the analogies that were made throughout the book to different parts of business were very, very clever, and the whole analogy with the whole punk theme was very clever.
Thank you very much. Can I come to Helen? Can I come to you next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Helen, or Elena Rozanova. Hi, I'm based in Russia, so we're 7 p.m. now, guys. That's why I'm in the office still, because my 4-year-old won't allow that at home. So I'm working for a property management company. We actually have offices in probably all the countries which are represented now, but I'm supporting my property management here in Russia. I joined about 3.5 years ago with a pitch that customer experience should be part of our agenda to move the property business forward, because it's so old-fashioned and so not thinking about the customers of any type. I was looking at PunkCX for quite some time, actually, because I listened to lots of podcasts, and Adrian's podcast, PunkCX, is one I really like. And when I saw that Christopher, you're starting this book club, and the first one would be PunkCX, I thought, okay, now I have the legitimate reason to read it, actually, because it's funny, but English books in Russia cost like a fortune, and delivery it will be like a pain in the butt. So thankfully, Amazon has his Kindle. What I like about the book, and I actually wrote this, and Eileen probably read it already, that it's like a tug in a pub. When you hit it, when you're really enjoying the conversation, when both of you have the point, when it's a genuine care about the subject, and when the ideas come at the end. It doesn't have to be perfect ideas, it's just something that the passion will eventually lead you to. So I really like the book. As Stephen said, I'm rereading it. I really love the artwork. It's inspiring, because some books you just read and it's like, wake me up at some point. So that one was good. I'm really enjoying this whole thing.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
thank you
very
for
much.
inviting.
No worries. Thank you for being here. Glenn, can I come to you next?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. Morning, afternoon, evening. Glenn Hopper, based in Bury, just outside Manchester, at the present between roles. Started looking for a role just as the virus hit, so not very good timing. I'm not sure, looking at the audience here, I might be the only one, but I remember when punk came around, so in the UK in '76, and the impact it had on the music scene. It stagnated, it had very inward looking. Along came punk in '76, the Sex Pistols, and gave it the kick up the backside it needed. So when this opportunity came along, and I'd heard Adrian do some presentations, I like his style, thought, yeah, I'll jump to this and offered to review the book. When I saw the book, again, it may be a wee bit of nostalgia, but what I like is the layout. It's the form of a double album, As a kid, you used to go to Manchester, get the album, read it on the bus coming back. It just reminded me of that layout. And as Stephen alluded to, it's something you can just dib in and dib out. So that is why I offered to review the book. And plus, I think CX is just like that prog scene, the music scene in the early 70s, it stagnated. I think fresh ideas are always welcome.
Glenn, that's awesome.
That's succinct whistle stop of it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Good man. Thank you. Sharon, can I come to you next?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Boyd from MKL, which is an Internet of Things company in the UK. And we also do customer experience as well as a consulting arm as part of that. Well, I don't know what to say about the book, really. Well, I didn't know what to say, otherwise I wouldn't be doing a review. But I think I was just genuinely blown away by it, really. What I particularly like is the call to action that is at the end of every page. You don't normally get that. You don't normally get a page that says, okay, makes you think. And then at the end, it kind of really makes you think about what am I going to do next? So I'm quite a quick reader. I tend to read like that almost. And actually with this book, I didn't. I just really wanted to savor it. And I think I drove my husband slightly crazy with the amount of times I went, oh, that's a really good point. Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Really succinct, bang on the nail, and really practical. And you don't get that with a lot of business books. Quite often it's, so much theory, can't really apply it to real life. Yeah, but you absolutely can.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Aleda, can I come to you next? And thank you for joining us slightly later. You didn't miss anything at the start, but if you could just introduce yourself and then give us your kind of summary on the book, that'd be much appreciated.
Okay, my name is Aleida. I live in Panama, Central America. So I never heard of this author before because my mother tongue is Spanish. So in the pandemic, I look for ways to enhance my work in CS. I was brand new in CS in last year. I worked before in customer care, but in CS, I never worked before. So in this pandemic, I look in ways to enhance my work and do it better, because who was supposed to be my mentor left the company. So I left all alone. So I like this book very much. I like rock. So that was a very entertaining reading. And I love the way that the author put the things that Sharon said they were applicable to life also, not only to work in CS. I loved also the way that he tells us how that we have to meet the customer and make or do things how they can meet face to face and give them, the customer give them our feedback, the feedback they have from the company. So that was very interesting for me, that book.
Excellent.
And the ideas, very, very, very easily to implement.
Sure. Wonderful. Excellent. Who should I go to next? Gabriela, can I come to you next?
Yes, hello, I'm Gabriela Ciupitu. I'm from Romania, from Bucharest. I'm working in banking area as CX manager. So reading the book PunkCX, I find it very brave and showing the cruel reality from the majority of organization, because the concept of customer experience is like a new fashion from a few years ago. And it's a new fashion for introducing new technologies, digitalization, new measurements. But we have to come back to the basics and to see if the customer is satisfied with the basics, processes, products, and what we are offering. And also if the customer is satisfied with the tone of voice, with the words that he is hearing, and so on. So I really like two ideas mainly in the book. First, the balance between the human touch and the technology. And the second one, I really like the idea of being great at the basics processes. And that is more important than the sparkling digitalization application and so on. So it was really great. And the design was, wow. I really like that he's telling a lot of things in few words, because I don't like books that is telling me a story in 100 of pages for one idea. So was on my heart.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Gabriela. And Jeff, it seems mean you were the first one to send your review. I make you last, but we're all ears. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Jeff, and just share your review.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jeff Sheehan. I'm an American here in Dublin, doing a CX consulting after working in customer service for over 25 years in one role or another. And I was really excited to see the book review because I'm writing my own book, which I hope to publish this year. And hopefully it could be reviewed.
Hey, there's an November slot.
Yeah, perfect. Pencil me in, please. Plus, I met Adrian Swinscoe this year after reading some of his articles, and so I was very interested in the title PunkCX, and sort of Adrian's wrapped himself up in that sort of branding. So I was curious to see what the book had to say, and like the rest of everyone, I thought it was a really fun and a really original treatment, just as a book, but also on a business topic. You know, to everyone's point, it wasn't boring, it wasn't dry and stale, and it wasn't something I'd really read before. It was. I also liked that it had a sort of challenge. Every sort of section had its own little challenge about rethinking some of the topics. I really liked it, and I have to say, you know, like Sharon had mentioned, I highlighted different parts of the book. I made some sounds when I read some ideas that appealed to me too. So, so it was a lot of fun. And Glenn, you're not the only one who remembers punk rock. I was a college kid in the early '80s in Boston, and punk rock was very much a thing in those days too. So a lot of fun. So I do want to point out that Adrian does mention the Bee Gees in one in the book. So
you have a bone about that, don't you?
A little bit. I was like, if the Bee Gees are punk rock, then I need to go back to music school or something. But no, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. So was the theme of was it the punk, kind of the disruptive nature of punk that stood out for people, or was it more the format? Was the punk a nice wrapper, and the format of these multiple ideas just being thrown at you with, as you say, Sharon, a call to action? What was there something specific that stood out to people that they'll always remember this book for?
Yeah, I think the punk bit was the nice wrapper for me.
Yeah,
and that helped all the analogies, etc. But I think, as some of the others have said, it's so succinct. Every single page stands alone. There's a call to action at the end of it. If you did nothing else but picked up and looked at one page a day and implemented something from that, you'd be able to, evolve rather than transform, as it says, your business. So I really like the fact that you can, it's almost a handbook as well as in a really practical way. So that's what stands out for me.
I think also, oh, sorry.
No, go on, Helen, please.
I just wanted to also say that design-wise, it's good because it's something that draws your attention. I used to work for a design agency, and I remember that, people tend to think of design as just being beautiful, but actually it's something that gets you in this mode. And as Sharon just said, you open that and you kind of get yourself in this mode of fun and cool and quirkiness. And that kind of makes you move through the book, or even open one page and go with that.
I mean, I think for me it was design. You can almost imagine a safety pin through the PunkCX and the wee red banner. You can almost imagine that. So that's what grabbed me. But the thing I'll take away, it was just one small section about digital design. What was it? It was digital solutions designing out human contact. And for me, it's a big issue, particularly during COVID, how a lot of the organisations are designing, are transforming and accelerating, but they're forgetting the ultimate thing, the customer. So that's, as a piece, as a nugget from the book, is what I take away. But I say, for me, it's something different. It looks kind of enticing. It's not a bland business book, with algorithms on and all that great stuff. It's the essence of punk rock. Back to basics.
I know Adrian kind of, whether he said it in this, but when I spoke to him, he said, it's, not every page is for everyone. I don't expect everyone to agree with everything I say. I quite liked the fact that some of the things made me challenge my assumptions, and other things I thought, I don't think I'm with you on that. And I actually respected him more for being honest rather than just trying to find a middle ground, like probably a prog rock ground that kind of everyone would go, I don't disagree or agree. Some things I went, I'm not with you on that. And I thought that was healthy and different from a lot of books I've read. Did others find things in there they kind of thought, I'm not sure?
Yeah, I did. I saw the law of three shits, and I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure.
I think that might have been one for me as well, Jeff, actually, yeah.
I thought, well, maybe he threw that in there because it's kind of punk, to kind of not care. But as a business book, I just saw that and said, I don't know. And I like to curse as much as the next guy, especially if the next guy is Adrian. But I didn't really understand what that was trying to tell me.
Do you think you could take this into meeting rooms and kind of pick any particular page and challenge the organisation to say, what are we doing on this? Do you think it's practical in that respect?
I think you've got to gauge your audience, but yeah, I think you could. I mean, the majority of pages you could just go, okay, let's, as a starter or almost an icebreaker for this meeting, let's just go through. And then at the end where it says, are we doing it? Are we being brave? Are we doing this? Are we taking this seriously? Let me just check again. Are we actually doing it? That's quite powerful, isn't it? And to read it from a book rather than saying it yourself, it's quite a good way to get stuff done and challenge the thinking that's going on in the room. So yeah, I would take it into a CX meeting if I thought it would move stuff forwards, then definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, the Cull Your Metrics chapter is a great way to sort of initiate a conversation. Just use it as a tool to generate the conversation that's, asking you to assess what you measure and is it necessary and why do we measure it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I found a lot of parts of the book were easy to use in starting a discussion.
You see, Chris, one thing I took away is punk itself came around from the youth, being disenfranchised, being sick of the establishment. And I think this book, maybe it fall on deaf ears if you took it into a FTSE 100 company into the boardroom and says, look at this, are we doing this? Yeah, generate conversation. But I think that CX will change from the startups, from the disruptors in the market. And I think this type of book is something you could take in there and it'd really resonate. So you've got you kind of you start up business and looking at CX, think this is what we need not to do. You know, we don't want to be the tried and tested. We come in with some new idea. I think this is where the book will really add its value.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Sorry, Stephen.
I really, when I first read it, I'm reading it second time now, I thought, oh God, I really want to give this book in Russian. I'm afraid Russians do not speak very good English here. In Russian, to like most of the CX experts in Russia, just to kind of shake them up a little bit, because we're so like in bureaucracy, in Russian papers, moving from one page, from one side of table to another, and metrics, as Glenn just said, or sorry, Jeff said. But anyway, it's just something that we need even in different languages, and something that maybe Adrian will think about, because it's kind of has to move. Right now, it's a bit of a storm in English-speaking community, but maybe it can bring more value even if it's broader CX community storm than it's right now.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you just said there, Glenn, about maybe it's more for startups and maybe not for the FTSEs. I've worked for 3 FTSE 100s in a row, and while there's some of those where we're all pretty agile, I'd say, but I think that the whole essence of this book is about stepping up and being brave and shaking things up, just as Helen said there. So I think it would be a shame not that the FTSEs don't get to see this type of book and don't read it and don't get to feel that stab in the arm to go, oh, okay, yeah. I know that's not what you were saying, that you were not the right.
And I completely agree. Just my issue with the FTSE 100 is they tend to look at MPS, move the data right. It's a number rather than CX. Right. So my concern is, first of all, you've got to move them from the number into understanding what, as he says, it's a customer experience versus the customer's experience. And I think that mindset, that's where you may struggle. And I think to actually have the impact that COVID's driving, it's going to be a startup or a disruptor that will come along, and then they will have to adapt.
I actually think the timing of the book, or the timing of me reading the book, couldn't have been better, because as you say, I mean, certainly in the UK at the moment, there's a lot of what we could be seen as, there's certainly not your original type of companies that are the companies that are making the waves and making noises. And this book would be perfect for them, so that, the examples of doing something different are out there and they're being lived at the moment. And I think that's what's, I think it might have been Gabriella that mentioned brave. It was brave, but I think that's what's needed. I think that's what's needed.
Yeah, I agree. I think that bit you just spoke about there, Glenn, where you said about the metrics bit, page 30, where he says, repeat after me, and he obviously says some swear words that I'm not going to say. But yeah, there's a whole bit there, isn't there, where he really points out it's not just about metrics. And I remember being on a CX framework discussion where I had to, several times had to say, what about the implementation? What about the strategy side? What about, CX actually doing it and putting it in place? And it was, but it's about the metrics, isn't it? And the measurement. I was like, so yeah, I that page really stuck out for me because I thought that so resonates.
Yeah. Well, looking for it. Sorry, Chris, go on, sorry.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, he lands on sort of better outcomes, doesn't he? Kind of better outcomes, but not being tied down to something that's going to then restrict kind of creativity. I got the sense that there's a lot of opportunity that's not realized in customer experience because it is locked down. And this felt like every time you were being restricted, it was challenging you to just break off those shackles and do something a bit more, not exciting and kind of reckless, but certainly, maybe customer experience has got a little complacent and it's become slightly uncomfortable in itself. It's not adding the value it thought to. And this is really an attempt to kind of, I could see almost Adrian just shaking, come on, you should do more, you should do better. I thought it was a real rallying cry for me to kind of say, keep going further and harder, faster, do more.
Well, I think CX has morphed into this massive, uncontrollable beast that's all embracing to whoever you speak about. And I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes it needs that shake, to then just get back to the fundamentals. What is CX all about? Well, ultimately, it's about the customer. That's what it should be in my simple terms. And again, using the punk rock scenario, that's it. It's taking it to its base level, to its simplest form. And I think that it's ideal time for it. Because the new norm, whatever that looks like, is going to be completely different to pre-COVID, because customer expectations have changed.
Hugely.
Yeah, when Gunn was just saying, I thought that this book reminds me of some works that Seth Godin is doing about marketing, right? He's also trying to shake up the marketing community, saying, come on, guys, it's different. Shake up, just do things, try, because as you said, it's a beast which marketing became as well, and we need a little bit of thinking differently. And again, when you mentioned NPS, our NPS is around 100 because we know how to calculate it. And I really want to give this book to my CEO just to say it's like different things, you know. So in case you need to know how to calculate the NPS, right, just come here. We know how to do it.
Excellent. Right, Adrian's going to be joining us ever so shortly. I've just got a link I've got to send him. And he'll be with us.
I just want to mention it's a pretty comprehensive book. I mean, there's a number of topics Adrian touches on, which is really cool. So even if there is something that you don't quite agree with, or it isn't really applicable, you know, there's tons of ideas in here across a number of topics and subjects. So I really like that. And back to the design, I love like the thickness of the pages, and you know, this reminded me of the Sex Pistols album cover. Didn't it? I think maybe that's why he chose the colors, but the paper was really amazing. So there's a bit about like a tactile experience with this book that I enjoyed. It's very different than your average business book. So maybe you can, now that I've learned a bit about publishing, hopefully if it's a print-on-demand book, that they can convert into other languages.
Yeah, we need to mention that. I'm happy to move it forward in Russia.
Yeah. Because as I know, Amazon and Ingram Spark will print in a lot of different languages because they sell all over the world.
I think, I don't know if someone mentioned it, but I think you're right. I think it's a really good reference and a good resource, you know, to go back to, you know, whenever. I could see it being used as a good reference book, just to go back after certain sessions or certain meetings or certain things didn't go well. You would go back and try and reassure yourself.
Is there a second book in it, or do you think he's actually because obviously there's 100+ ideas, but there's not 300 or 400 pages. Do you think he's actually being quite strict with himself in restricting it to things that really made an impact, rather than just letting it kind of just drift, and then you kind of go, nah, not so sure on that, not so sure on that?
I don't know, maybe that's a question to put to Adrian, because I wondered the same, how he'd be, because they're all so succinct and punchy, that I wondered if there was a lot more and he'd had to be really strict with himself, or whether that was what he had. Well, there he is. So.
There we go.
My ears are burning.
Yeah, they should have been, Adrian. Look, well, Adrian, welcome in. Sorry you've been in the waiting lounge for an eternity. It certainly didn't mean that the conversation dried up here. We've all been, I've got mine there. I think others have got theirs with them in front of them. There we go.
Can I make you all super jealous?
What have you got then instead? Oh my God! You got an album version, have you?
With the hard copy.
That is the original concept. That is a 7" by 7" hardcover, kind of like limited edition in homage to the 7" single.
Well, we've had a good kind of canter around our views and opinions on the book. So I don't want to hold up proceedings. We've asked our guest reviewers to think of a question they want to pose to you, Adrian. So I'm going to open up the floor. I'm going to come to Glyn first and ask you, Glyn, if you wouldn't mind posing your question to Adrian. And
Cheers, Chris.
good
Hi,
luck,
Adrian.
Hey, Glenn.
Yeah, the question I've got, because I lived through punk rock, and punk rock was driven by the youth of the time, the angst, the anger, the disenfranchised with the establishment. So do you think that this change in CX will be driven by the SMEs of the day, the disruptors, or do you think it's going to be the established organisations who recognise that there's need for change and they do it themselves?
So, I mean, it's a great point. And I'm not an original kind of punk. I'm more of a post-punk kind of era. So I'm original, sort of a new wave ska boy, which came out the back of kind of punk.
Yeah.
So I'm like old Farah jackets and Fred Perry t-shirts and Farah trousers and stuff. And it would be natural to think that this profound change would come from startups or disruptors or so on and so forth. But hold on, I want to show you this. What, do you see that? There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Punk is an attitude and a mindset, not a method. It's not the answer. That's up to you. I got the graphics made up into posters, which you can see in the back of me, and I think that's the challenge. I think maybe there's a young mind, old mind idea thing here. And it's about brain plasticity, right? Young minds are generally more open to new ideas and more courageous and are more aligned with sort of breaking the rules. But that shouldn't be just the preserve of the young or the youth. Actually, I think it's incumbent on us to kind of keep our minds young and fresh and, if you like, plastic. And I actually think there are opportunities for large organizations to change their minds, to change their mindset, because they have the footprint, they have the weight, the mass, the heft, as it were, to do something. Now, it doesn't mean to say that it requires them to do anything, markedly different. They could just start being kinder to everybody. And if you've got an organization that's got 100,000 people and that just kind of ripples, right? Then it's like brilliant. That's a super cool thing. But I think it's all about how we think about things. And the challenge is, and I think we've seen it over the last, it feels like an age since we've kind of going through the pandemic, is like how leadership has been forced to change and really re-examine kind of what is going on. I fervently hope that some of those ideas will really stick, right? Because we take, for example, this idea that we clap for carers and stuff and people that's on the front line and everything else. I want to make sure that's not just rhetoric. We value people that are on the front line, and it turns into positive and meaningful and real kind of action and value. Because there's no point, excuse my language, clapping for somebody, then treating them like shit and then not paying them a living wage.
Mm-hmm.
It's nonsense, right? Because it's just the same as before. It's like a system of fealty sort of thing. It's like going, yeah, be thankful that you've got a job and you're doing hard work and you're doing meaningful work. Well, pay me show me the value. And if we get organizations that are willing to do that, for me, punk is all relative, right? Because actually being a big organization that goes, I get that, I want that, I'm going to do that, that's different.
Cool. Excellent, Adrian. Thank you very much for that.
Cheers,
right,
thank you.
Straight on. Thank you, Glyn, as well for your question.
You're
Elena,
going to get me all riled
you've
up
got your
now.
hand up there, Elena.
Yeah, because I just want to, hi, Adrian, Elena from Russia. Hello.
Hey.
You just said about the companies which can do it. Have you seen the brands which actually turned at or turning into more PunkCX? Are there examples which make you proud and you saying, okay, guys are getting it? Even small things, but they're moving there.
So I think, what's interesting, I think kind of punk is a thing that's of it's I think, as I say, it's like punk, when you associate with music, it's of its kind of time and it's kind of like lasted. But actually as a mindset and an approach to things, I think it kind of transcends kind of history and kind of different eras in history. I would go back and say Mozart was a punk. even before punk existed, right? There's a, I think there's a Russian retail example that are doing some incredible things that I learned about through somebody else. I think called Visikill or something, a retail, I can't remember exactly, but I will come up with the reference. And what they're doing is they organize themselves in a very different kind of way. So rather than everything's command and control from the top, they're almost kind of, they organize in a network, and they nurture entrepreneurial spirit and capability right at the front line. So they give people the responsibility, say, look, it's your business, you're employed, but actually I want you to treat it as if you're a business. And that gets so much extra value and amplifies the experience. And it's a great example that I've learned about what's going on in the Russian market. And forgive me, Helen, I probably get the name wrong, but I will look it up and I will find out who those kind of are, because I've got this I've got this link with an article that refers to it. And
I would be very interested.
I also encourage you. There's a journalistic source that I've just come across, and it's called Rest of World. And it is, I would encourage you to look it up, because they are hell-bent on this mission about telling stories that are outside of the mainstream kind of norm, and looking for great examples of different things that are going on in the, particularly in the assembled attendees. That I know that we get caught up in stories that come from either, maybe in my case, Britain or America or kind of like Europe. Now what they're trying to do is trying to highlight excellent examples or excellence from all over the world. And I would encourage you to look for that, because I think there's some fantastic people doing some incredible work all over the place.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you for your response, Adrian. Jeff, what's your question?
I have one question in two parts. First part is, what is your hope that the book generates? What is it that you sort of intended the book to do? Obviously, it's a thought provoker, but Adrian, as an author, what was it you hoped to achieve with this particular book? And then secondly, how in the world could you have a book about punk rock and have lyrics from the Bee Gees in that same book?
So, first thing I should say, in the answer to the first part of the question, nothing. Because I wrote it as I wrote it purely from the heart. It was born out of frustration, and it became an art project. In true punk fashion, I was a bit like, and excuse me, but I'm getting kind of slightly more profane in my old age. I couldn't give a shit about what people think about it, because I thought it deserved to be said. And it came out of like this period of frustration. I was a bit like going, I just want people to be able to do better work that produce better outcomes for customers. And I wasn't seeing that. And I was like, rrr. And what drunks call kind of a moment of clarity, when I was speaking to my friend Oisin in the pub after numbers of pints of Guinness, I went, I wish somebody would do something a bit more punk, right? And that was sort of the inspiration. It's like, let's just do some better shit. Come on. And just in answer to your second question, there's nothing more punk than using the Bee Gees in a book about, and there's a book inspired by punk, and it's not what you'd expect, right?
Right, absolutely.
But it's also really convenient, because it had a song which is like only words. But right. I actually wrestled with that. I was like, Bee Gees, does that really work? I was like, bugger it, who cares?
Brilliant. Excellent.
Well
Thank you
done.
very much. Great question.
Also, I think a really great punk song. Remember Sid Vicious did a cover of My Way by Frank Sinatra? I just thought, you know, somebody's got to do kind of like Words by the Bee Gees, kind of like as a punk cover song. It just has to happen.
Excellent. Aleda, can I come to you for your question, please?
Yes. Hi, Adrian. Nice to meet you. My question was, so in some part of your book, you mentioned something that we have to make creative ways to hire the right people.
Yeah.
How we do that? How we can teach the HR that to hire the right people to the jobs?
So I think this is it's a really interesting kind of question. So thank you, Aleda, for it. It's like, so this is based around the idea. It's like if everybody's doing the same thing, and everybody kind of wants to kind of be number one in their field, then that maths doesn't stack up, right? So if we're all going down the same routes, kind of doing the same things, and everybody's trying to win, it's like, meh. So you have to be willing to do something different. Now, if everybody's trying to hire people using the same avenues, i.e. job boards or LinkedIn ads or kind of whatever it might be, or job fairs, then you're all fishing from the same pool, in the same kind of using the same rods and the same fishing lines and the same bait. So there's I've got sort of 2 or 3 stories there about people that have done different things. Now, when we were allowed to travel, Citizen M, the hotel chain that's kind of based here in kind of Europe, a boutique hotel chain, the way that they hire is they have what they do is they organize it's like they call it a casting call. So it's like as if you're hiring somebody for a play or a film. So they invite people to show up and then almost play a role. So like an actor or an actress sort of thing. And it's like how you get out, they run them through different exercises and they have them there for a whole day. They also do these little things. One, they generally kind of have them organized on a Sunday. And it's starting at 9 a.m. on a Sunday because that's a measure of commitment, and or a public holiday because then it measures the commitment of like how committed people are to kind of get there. And then they kind of just put everybody together and have them run through these personality and acting type exercises, because what they do is they end up figuring out if these people can operate in a team, because also the role that they were playing, they're almost acting. It's like they're a host, they're front of house. They have to kind of almost, they want to kind of test them in that sort of way. So that's kind of one way which I think is super creative. Another way comes from a company called Wayfair, you know, the online furniture manufacturers. One of the things that they did in the States, because they truly believed that if we want to have passionate people in service, they thought that they came to the conclusion that passion was a transferable skill. That if you're passionate about something in one domain, then it's pretty sure you can transfer that into another domain. So what they did was like going, okay, let's find out kind of like some people that we think are passionate. And what they did is they came up with this idea, is like, rather than going to a standard jobs fair, they're like, going, why don't we take a stand at the local Comic-Con conference exhibition? So they took a stand at Comic-Con in San Diego one year, and a number of things happened. One, when they asked for volunteers to go and man the stand, to go and speak to prospective future employees, loads of people put their hands up. They're like, we get free tickets to go to Comic-Con in San Diego? Are you kidding me? So like, everybody was like, we want to go there. And because they also kind of they employed a whole bunch of people that were dressed up in like comic book characters like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy and so on and so forth. It attracted a whole bunch of attention because it made people think, oh, these people are just like me. And then they come and they would talk, and then it was like, because they're passionate about, if you go to Comic-Con, you're passionate about comic books and films and everything else. And if by being there, they just put themselves in the middle of that space and said, we love your passion. Come and talk to us about helping kind of leveraging that passion in a space that kind of may actually kind of help us. And that was incredibly successful from them. So I think the bottom line is if you go and do the same things as other kind of people, then it's unlikely you're going to find the get different results. And what you've got to do is you've got to break out from that and almost like go like we would say, if you want to reach out to your customers, if you want the right people, you've got to go to where they're at. You can't just expect them to come to you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great question. Thank you again, Adrian. Stephen, can I come to you next? Got your question for Adrian?
Stephen, you're on mute.
Someone had to do it, didn't they?
Oh, there's always one.
Someone had to do it. So
and a fellow Scotsman as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My question was similar to it's not been asked, but directly, but was just about the experiences you've had, which led you to write a book like PunkCX, or the approach. Take the, what made you write it in that way? What experience have you had that led you to write it in that way?
So the answer to the second part is none. I mean, my brother is a musician, but not in. He was in a punk band a while ago, but he's now like a full-time musician. He's way more famous. He's the most famous member of our family. He has a band called the Cinematic Orchestra, and so he does very well out of it. But for me, it was like a personal challenge. It was, if you come up with the idea and you come up with a hypothesis that is, if CX is starting to exhibit some of the same characteristics as prog rock did in the 1970s, and then punk exploded out the back of it, then what would a punk version of CX look like? And I was like going, okay, shit, what does that mean? And if I wrote 50 or 60,000 words of black ink on white paper, does that really fit with being punk? I'm like, nah, that doesn't fit. What's punk about? So punk is colorful, it's heart, it's energetic, and so I almost had to go through this kind of process, kind of like going, oh, it's great, and then, oh no, it's not. And then just kind of landing on it and going, oh, why do we do it inspired by the albums, and rather than having chapters, let's have tracks and try make it as really punchy as possible and try and organize it that way. And it was really a sort of an organic kind of plan. And then I worked with my friend Ocean, who actually helped me edit the thing. And then I worked with a friend, Tom, and he put me up with a designer called Matt, who had some experience of designing record covers. And so I gave him the words, and I kind of came up with this. I've had this design idea in my head. I said, "What do you think?" And we all kind of worked together, and it kind of got magicked out of this thing. And Matt said the sweetest thing. I said, I hope that, because I said to him, I hope this wasn't really hard for you. He said, actually, you know what? It wasn't hard at all. He said, the way you wrote it, the designs jumped off the page. It made the process really easy for me. So it was a beautiful thing. It just all kind of came together. Once we landed on it, it came together, and it was a bit like, I got to the point I was like, oh my fucking God. Because it's a thing, right? It's like I've written 3 now, but this is it's a nice thing. I'm super proud of it. Excellent.
Good.
Okay, we've got 2 more questions. So Sharon, can I come to you next? Thank you, Stephen, for that.
Yep. Hi, Adrian.
Hey, Sharon.
I just wondered, like, if all the concepts that you've got in the book, and there's quite a lot, which is just brilliant. I just wondered if your thinking had changed or evolved, as you say in the book, at all since you published it.
Well, not I 100% believe in it, and if anything, I see that there's gaps in it, and that's kind of why there's this thing. I've got this thing where I'm going like, oh, should I do a volume 2 or the unreleased kind of demos and kind of B-sides and all that sort of stuff, and then I kind of go, oh God, am I going to have second album syndrome? Oh, that's going to be a bit rubbish. How am I going to position that? So I don't know. I mean, there's some stuff that's in there that it's quite random, but it's like anything. It's like any album, I guess, in that there's very few albums that you listen to that you just like end to end. You just go, that's a piece of work. And most of the time, it's probably about 3 or 4 different songs that you just go, that's them. And you bring the album and you go, play that one, skip, play that one, skip, play that one. And it, you know, and that's fine. And that's kind of almost the way that it's kind of done. It's like, I sort of, so I'm rambling a little bit now, but I do think everything I've written over the last sort of 12 years about all of this sort of stuff is I sort of stand by. And so if anything, there's more about that it's unfinished. It's always unfinished. And I love the kind of, one of my favorite parts of it is just for the kind of what it says is the bit that quotes kind of Tom Peters, where he talks about live to serve, because it's a mission, it's a vocation, it's a calling sort of thing. I quite happily say to people that I am in service to service. That's my thing, you know. Excellent. And whether that's popular or not, I don't care really. I'm just going to keep on keeping on.
Great question. Thank you, Sharon.
That was my second question, so I got 2 in one.
Thank you, Adrian. Gabriella, can we come to you for the final question, please?
Yes. Hello, Adrian. Here is
Hi,
Gabriella from Romania. If you could turn back time when you started CX Direction, what would you do differently in the CX industry or to influence more the acceleration of CX importance in the market?
So I think I would turn things around. So I wish I'd published PunkCX sooner, because what normally happens is people kind of tend to be punk and then just become kind of more kind of grown up rather than going, do your things in a grown up way and then kind of like, and then go, no, punk, you know. So it's usually there's a correlation between age or youth and how punk you are. I think my kind of like correlation is called, it has an inverse relationship, and I'm getting kind of more punk the kind of the older I get. And so that's, yeah, I guess so. That's the only kind of thing. So if anything, it would be get louder, get more direct, speak more kind of like truth to power, you know, talk more sense, forget the kind of the all of the buzzwords and everything else, and just focus on the stuff that matters. I think, like I say in the book, which I was paraphrasing or quoting somebody else, is like, find out what, you know, what matters to people, then make them matter. That's it. You know, this is all about, it's a human equation. First, last, and all the way through the middle. It's like everything else is just there to support it.
Brilliant. Well, Adrian, look, thank you very much for taking all those questions. For me, it's been kind of nourishment for the restless. I've loved it. I've been able to consume it along with toast. I've been able to indulge in quiet parts of my house, and I've been able to put it down and pick it up. It's been a very different read to, I think, anything else I've read in this sector or many others. So I'm very, very grateful for you having that drunken moment of inspiration and putting a pen down to paper and ending up with a work of beauty. I would be hugely proud if I was you as well. It's an incredible achievement, and I think it's quite timeless. I think you can keep throwing the points up in it. Sharon's just suggested we should very definitely get a selfie. So if we all hold our books up, or if you've got them with you, let's get a selfie there. And then
can I do this to you lot?
Yeah, that's perfect. Well done. Well done, Helena. Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. And Adrian, we spoke about whether there would be a second album, and I felt you're a man of integrity, and you wouldn't want to hang around if there wasn't enough to say. So it'll be interesting to see whether you feel the sector hasn't listened and deserves to have another kick up the proverbial, or whether you kind of go, no, actually, look at it. I've got the messages across there. So we'll be very interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think there's a there. So I have a little kind of notebook here, which I've been scribbling some stuff into it, and just ideas. And I think there's some stuff I have to kind of like, I have to kick the tires on this, and it might just be a little bit of a refrain. There's one actually, which I think it. There's a couple of things that are kind of that are forming. So I think it might come, and it might come kind of some sooner rather than later. I just need time to kind of get it kind of going. But here's an idea for you, which is something that's been occurring to me: is what would it take to celebrate a complaints process?
Excellent.
Because nobody kind of like says wonderful things about a complaints process.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But if you think about it, that's just like turns everything on its head. You know, like what would it take to do that? To make complaining a wonderful experience. And how would that kind of change stuff, rather than it feel like it's like, I don't know, a recurrence of some sort of battle of some sort, like kind of, you line up over there, we line up over there, and we're all going to charge at each other. It's just, it's a war of attrition. So I just think that there's some stuff that's been, that one that's occurred to me out of the course of the pandemic, but also just kind of as we go forward, it's just like trying to assemble different ways of looking at it. It doesn't have to be right. That's the point. It just have to ask the questions like, what would happen if you did that?
That's awesome.
And if that means that you don't end up just giving up on that, which is what we do for complaints, which is a part of everything really, because things go wrong and sometimes things go badly wrong. But we still treat people badly in those moments.
I think just the way you've positioned that, it's just got me thinking in terms of looking at all of those conventions and just flipping them. So thank you for that. I think we're going to have to wrap because we're out of time. I'd like to thank all of my guest reviewers for joining for this inaugural Limetropy review. Really appreciate your commitment. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for sharing your questions with Adrian. Adrian, thank you so much for one, writing the book, and two, agreeing to be our first guest author. You'll be very welcome back with any future publications. And I'm sure each of these individuals will come back to you with the answer for how do you celebrate complaint handling. I'm sure we'll get some answers back on that as well.
Christopher, can I just say that thank you to everybody assembled, to Glenn, to Stephen, to Sharon, to Jeff, to Helen, to Gabriella, to Aleda, for the questions you sent in and how thoughtful they were, but also the comments that you made around the kind of the reviews, because I put my heart and soul into this sort of stuff. And I'm filling up now, actually. And it matters. And your feedback matters to me, but you matter as well. So go forth, turn up the volume, embrace your inner punks, and fucking rip it up, people. The world is waiting.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well done.
We take your instruction and we're off. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you all. Bye-bye.